everyone, I'm Sandie La Nae. Welcome to Psychic Creations. We have an awesome show for you today. As you know, Psychic Creations has filmed several shows that are history related, such as with Kim Harris's Western History Alive, and an interview with Cheryl Hayes Zorn at the Nevada Historical Society in Reno. Our guest today has brought a new and unique resume to the Psychic Creations history programs, what with the creation of historical clothing that are exquisite, beautiful, and awesome. Please welcome on Psychic Creations a woman with exceptional talents in the realm of historical clothing, Liza McIlwee. Welcome!
Thank you.
Oh, it's such an honor to have you with us today. Our viewers, I know, are very interested in hearing and seeing just all that you create. Cool. All right. Well, first off, so our viewers can get up close and personal with you, are you a native Nevadan?
Actually not. However, Nevada is the longest place I have lived.
Oh.
My dad was in the Army, and unlike other Army families, we were able to remain stationed in Alabama for 12 years.
Oh, nice.
So I grew up in Alabama, but on an Army base, so it's not quite the same as growing up in the Deep South.
Right, sure.
Being on an Army base, we get people moving in and out all the time, and so I got a little bit of the variety of being in a military family, but the stability of growing up in one place for 12 years.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. So between age 12 and 17, we did move around a few times. I lived in Germany for a few years, and Texas, and I met my husband in Pennsylvania. And
all over the place.
Yeah. So shortly after, Pennsylvania was my parents' hometown, or it was Hanover, Pennsylvania, where they were born and raised.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we ended up there, and met my husband in the area, and then we moved out here in 2000.
Oh, to Nevada and
Yes.
Carson?
Yes.
Or do you live in Carson?
Currently not Carson. We did live in Carson when we first moved here, and now we live in Dayton.
Oh, you like Nevada?
I love Nevada.
Well, I think Nevada likes you too.
I've definitely put roots here, and
oh, good.
And home is definitely Nevada for me.
Awesome. Well, we're glad that you are here because, well, we're going to be talking about why I'm glad that she's here. All right. Well, let's see. Let's go right into how did you become interested in history?
Funny enough, having been exposed to all the history in Germany, I only mildly had an interest in history there. Definitely found the architecture quite unique and interesting, but being a teenager, it really didn't faze me at all.
Sure.
And then living in Pennsylvania, you know, that's America's root history. But I had such distaste for Pennsylvania that I really wasn't bothered too much by it, and it wasn't until I moved out here and I really fell in love with the Victorian era. Seeing the Victorian homes on the west side of the historic district here in Carson, and going up to Virginia City, and at that point too, when I first moved out here, I was really into watching reruns of the Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman show.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And having moved 2,500 miles away from all my friends and family, I kind of became friends with Dr. Quinn.
Well, why not? Sure.
Because in that television show, she moved from Boston, I believe it was, to Colorado, all by herself, without any family.
Oh.
So she was, you know, pioneering on her own, and you know, I kind of felt a connection with her. And so with that TV show being set in the 1860s, it kind of just started, the dominoes started clicking for me at that point. And,
nice.
and it just kind of has evolved into this love for history.
Awesome. What is your favorite era of Western history?
1880s.
1880, yeah. Oh, my kind of gal. All right.
That is the later bustle period, and with what is claimed that the bustle came back with a vengeance.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So in the 1870s, it was a full bustle, but it was kind of transitioning from the hoop crinoline.
Okay.
And then the late 70s, it was called the natural form, where they basically took away the padding for the bustle, and it was just layers of petticoats. And then it almost seemed like they took the skirting and kind of pinned it behind the knees to get this very natural form silhouette. And then the mid-80s, the bustle came back, and it was poof.
Oh.
But the clothes are very tailored.
Okay.
The women's garments, the bodices and everything, real tailored. Whereas in the 70s, it was a lot of ruffles and lace. So I call that the cupcake dresses.
Oh, I like that term.
And I much prefer the more tailored look, but they're feminine at the same time. So that's why I like the 80s.
Oh, this is going to be such a fascinating show, viewers. Oh, how interesting. Well, on that note, how did you become interested in seamstress work?
It really stemmed from the fact that I wanted to make and wear dresses for local events, but also just to traipse around Virginia City. Because I really couldn't afford to pay somebody.
Sure.
You know, when we first moved out here, you know, it was my husband, daughter, and I, and you know, we really did. And we were a young family. We didn't have a whole lot of money, and I definitely didn't have money to be spending hundreds of dollars on dresses.
Oh, and you could.
So I had to figure it out, and I had to learn so that I could have these things. So.
Oh, boy, have you. You have learned very quickly. Now, you were self-taught? You didn't take any classes?
I didn't take any classes. However, my mother, she's a very talented artist. She can paint and draw.
Oh, nice.
And sew. She sewed all of our Halloween costumes. And I think I remember she sewed some of our clothing. But it was mainly the Halloween costumes, and I would watch her, and she taught me how to read a pattern, and you know, how to pin the patterns on and cut, and how to operate the sewing machine. However, her sewing machine was very temperamental, so whenever I tried to use it, it would eat the fabric and it would just suck it right down into it.
Sure.
My mom was like, "You pin it together, I'll sew it for you."
Oh,
okay. She knew the exact speed and tension and everything to keep it working.
Oh, well, that was good. Nice teamwork.
Right, right. So she taught me the basics. And from there, you know, I moved out here away from her, so she really wasn't here to guide me. My husband bought me my first sewing machine, and I went to Joann's and got some $1 a yard fabric and a $1 pattern, and I kind of just gave it a try, and I actually made a dress. And I'm like, oh, I can actually do this.
Oh,
so.
How fun. And that was the beginning.
That was the beginning.
Oh, well, now that's awesome. Well, what was your first historical dress that you created all by yourself?
That would be my Dr. Quinn inspired dress. I had made it just for Halloween, just to see if I could make something.
Oh,
It was a butterick pattern, and it was just a basic 1860s style hoop dress. However, I didn't have a hoop. I just wore my wedding crinoline under it, actually.
Oh!
And that wedding crinoline has taken me through many costumes.
Oh, awesome.
Until I learned how to make, and you know, I found patterns and stuff for historical undergarments. But it was just a simple bodice and skirt, reminiscent of the 1860s, and one of the dresses that Dr. Quinn wore in the show.
Is that right?
Yes.
Isn't that cool? I like that idea. Oh my gosh. Well, where can you or where do you find patterns, well, for all of your magnificent dresses? And I wanted to state that Liza just doesn't create Victorian wear. You create dresses into the 1900s as well, right?
Correct. This dress I'm wearing is an example. This is actually a reproduction of a Vogue pattern from, I believe, it was 1947, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, is that right? It's beautiful.
Yes. The fabric was, I fell in love with it. It was at Joann's. It was in the remnant section. There was only, I think, 1 3/4 yards or 1 7/8 yards, you know, just shy of 2 yards. And I had to, you know, really fit the pieces in
right.
to make it work. And I think I actually had to reduce the skirt size so that
Okay.
I could, you know, actually make the dress from the fabric. But that particular pattern I can get at Joann's through their Vogue section that they have.
Oh, okay.
Butterick has some reproduction retro. It's called retro, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And it's reproduction patterns of 1900s, like 1940s, 50s, and 60s.
Ooh, nice.
And then Butterick and McCall's also have historical pattern makers that basically they take patterns from history, actual patterns from history, and revamp them for the modern costumer.
Oh, nice.
Another outlet I have is Truly Victorian. Heather McNaughton, I believe is how you pronounce her name. She has been in the business of making Victorian patterns, dress patterns, for a while now. She basically studies historical garments and historical patterns and transfers them into a easy to read pattern for today's sewer, because the patterns in the Victorian era, in the Harper's Bazaar, or Godey's, Ladies' Home Journal, things like that, they would have a pattern for one dress on one piece of paper, and each pattern piece had its own specific dotted line. So you had to really look and find, okay, this dotted line is for this bodice piece, and this dotted line, and it's like all like layered and layered and layered onto this one page. I don't know how they figured it out. So, and then just lately, more recently, I have come across the Frances Grimble series of books. This woman has compiled patterns into these books, and it's basically, so like here's your front skirt piece.
Okay.
And you have to, she's got these apportioning scales in the back.
Oh, look at that. Okay.
Based on your measurements, you basically make your own tape measure that's based on your measurements.
Oh.
And then these increments are these increments.
Oh,
so then you get your own, you get a big piece of paper out, and then you measure, you draw your straight line, and you go in and mark all these points, and then you draft your piece.
I'll be darned.
So this is what I use to make my most recent dress.
Oh, lovely.
And
okay.
And my most recent dress is the dress that fits me the best, and it gives the nice Victorian silhouette, and that's because I'm using actual patterns from back then. It's just been it's been deciphered for me instead of having to try to decipher it from an old book. So
oh, that's fascinating. This book here. We'll advertise it and show it a little more later on in the program. Oh, this is just fascinating then. So does she sell patterns, or
no? She doesn't.
She did,
no,
okay.
She's got. She has this book. She's got a section a few years prior, because this is 85 to 87. So of course this is my favorite.
Sure.
So and then she also has some later years too.
Oh,
but they're all like this, where
okay.
where there's, you know, separate. So like, you know, here's a outerwear, that's a lady's coat, and then here's the pattern pieces to create that coat.
Isn't that interesting? Oh my goodness sakes. Well, where do you find particular fabrics for, well, all of your different era type of, I know you go to Joann's Fabrics here.
Mill End is where I find my best fabric.
Nice.
I have, in the beginning when I first started, I would just buy fabric that I liked.
Okay.
Regardless of what the fabric content is. But
good point.
The more I've researched, the more, and I want to make more of a historically accurate garments. They only had access to natural fibers: wool, silk, cotton, linen. So Mill End, I found a beautiful brown silk linen blend that I made a skirt for one of my dresses, and it just pleated so beautifully. And I found, I wish I would have brought it. I should have brought the fabric to show you. It's when you think of silk, you think of taffeta and satin, but I found this gorgeous plaid silk, and it's like, it's more of a, it almost is reminiscent of like a wool, but it's silk.
Ooh, interesting.
And then my recent dress, the gray and black and white one, the one's like a charcoal gray, that's silk, and it's a herringbone weave.
Isn't that fascinating?
And I found all those at Milend. They have just the most pristine fabrics to use for historical reproduction clothing.
Isn't that interesting? Do you order out? Is there places online, or?
There are places online, but it's a lot more expensive.
Sure,
Not only by the yard, but then shipping. So, and then you're only seeing you're seeing a little square on a computer screen. So
sure,
you can order fabric swatches. And,
okay.
So you can go that route, but typically I can find what I need at Milend.
Really?
Yes.
Well, we'll have to remember that. Millen Fabric here in Carson City, people. You bet.
And the one up in Reno too.
Oh, there is one in Reno.
Yes,
Okay.
it's much bigger in Reno. So.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Oh, well.
But I
in Reno
typically
too.
find what I need in Carson. So.
Well, this is really nice.
And in regards to patterns, you're asking, this isn't an actual pattern book. However, this is one of my go-to books for design ideas. This is a it's basically reproduced of the 1885 Butterick catalog. So you open it up and it looks like the catalog.
Oh, look at that.
So this is where I get my ideas for types of fabric prints and just design ideas.
Oh my gosh, aren't these beautiful?
So I think it's right in the beginning. Yes, this dress right here with the tail bodice and these point fringe.
Okay.
I fell in love with that, and I had to remake it.
Oh.
So I made this one, and then I made a dress for my daughter based on one of the patterns in here.
Oh,
so I don't think it's printed.
These are beautiful. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, see they have little. They have little kids' clothing.
Oh, look at that.
And so you can get your design ideas.
Oh, I want that.
Isn't that gorgeous?
That's beautiful. Oh, gosh.
That's a lady's wrapper.
Really? Oh, I love that. And undergarments, do your books carry like patterns for the undergarments?
Some of the Frances Grimbles do, and then there's also from Truly Victorian.
Oh,
she has some undergarment patterns. Laugh-In Moon Mercantile, I forgot about that one. That's a pattern company as well.
Oh, nice. You had another book too of
this one here actually is about accessories.
Oh, well, we can talk about that in just a second too.
Okay.
That's one of my questions to you.
Okay.
All right. How long? Okay, let's talk about your charcoal dress because that's just absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
How long does that take to create a gown?
I've guesstimated because I don't sit there and I don't get to work straight through,
Sure.
and I have interruptions, and sometimes I can get a lot done and get it done in a shorter period of time, or as far as like the amount of days. Other times it takes me up to 2 months to actually get a project done, just because of my life and
Well, sure.
interruptions and things.
I don't mean to look so shocked.
But the guesstimated amount of time, actual time that I put in a dress, depending on the simplicity or how decorated it is, 20 to 30 hours.
Really?
So it's like, oh, if only I could just work on my dresses. I could probably make a dress a week, but
Well, okay, sure.
But with life, job, kids, family.
Sure. Yeah, life gets in the way of living.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm kind of, that's kind of shocking too, because I think if I tried this, it'd probably take me a year to make something like. So that's quite a long time though, 30 hours, 20 to 30 hours. Now I'm sure that if you make a garment of the 1920s, it might be a little bit less time consuming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say 8 to 10 hours.
Okay, so it's still quite some time though.
Yes, well, because you have to, you've got to get your design down. You've got to do the fitting and make sure you can't just dive in and cut a pattern out. You do that, and you end up number one, probably messing up your good fabric.
Mm-hmm.
So
Good point, yeah.
So there's a lot of time that goes into fitting,
Mm-hmm.
because not everybody is made the same.
Right.
You know, I may have the same waist measurement as Susie Q,
Mm-hmm.
but our busts are going to vary. The size of our arms is going to vary.
Mm-hmm.
The length of our torso is going to vary. The width of our shoulders is going to vary. So you have to make those adjustments with the pattern to make it fit you.
How interesting. So fitting is a very important, almost high priority
Yes.
before beginning to sew
Yes.
or cut the pad or cut
Yes.
the material even.
Yeah. So typically, what is done is called a mock-up.
Mhm.
You use a cheap fabric, typically a muslin, which is just a cotton, a cheap cotton, and then you make basically a practice garment.
Oh,
And then
interesting.
you put it on and find out where you need to make changes, where
Mhm.
you need to expand the pattern, where you need to shrink the pattern. And if you're lucky, it's perfect the way it
It's
is.
perfect, yeah.
And then you can just dive right in.
Oh,
So-
cool. Well, that's an interesting fact. I'm just learning all kinds of new things about, well, new things and improved things and just things about dressmaking. I don't know how to sew. Oh, this is just fascinating. All right, now, as far as the work is concerned, do you use a special sewing machine or?
Not at all. I typically just use the straight stitch on my regular plain. I think I have a brother now, a brother sewing machine.
Oh, huh.
I had a really nice embroidery machine, but static electricity kind of fried the computer in it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that would
sadly.
have been nice.
And prior to that, I had a Euro Pro, and that gave me a lot of good years. But it's, I used it a lot. So
Sure. So just a standard.
yeah, just a standard.
Oh,
I just typically use the straight stitch and the buttonhole stitch on it.
really?
Yeah.
Whoa, that sounds kind of simple then. No big high maintenance
Well,
machines you have to.
basically,
Mhm.
in the Victorian era,
Uh-huh.
the sewing machine was invented back then.
Sure it was.
It was like 1860 something, I believe.
Mhm.
And by the 1880s, butterick patterns were being made for home use. So women had sewing machines in their homes,
Isn't that interesting fact? Okay,
and all they had was a straight stitch.
that's true. Well,
So
I'll be
that's all you need.
Well, sure, that's it. Really, I just don't hold the two pieces of cloth together.
Pretty much.
So,
Yeah.
is there any work done by hand, maybe inside seams?
Absolutely.
or-
Typically,
Yeah, great.
just with any garment that has a lining,
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
you stitch the sleeve on, but then you've got your lining pieces,
Mhm.
and you don't want to stitch that because then you'll have a visible stitch on the outside. So that needs hand stitch.
Okay.
Same with the waistband.
Mhm.
When you flip the waistband over to the inside,
Mhm.
you stitch that by hand. Typically the hems are done by hand.
Mhm. Sure. Mhm.
And then, adding on the embellishments
Mhm.
are typically done by hand.
Which are.
Lace, beading, things like that.
Mhm.
The
Okay.
trims and stuff.
Oh, how beautiful. I can just see all these things in my mind. They're just, oh my gosh. Well, now you do create beautiful gowns and dresses. Do you create accessories?
Accessories, hats.
Hats. There we go. Awesome. And I think you brought
I
one to show us
Did
today.
bring one to show today. So this is not from any particular pattern. This is just basically something I sandwiched together.
Oh, it's beautiful.
What really makes the hat stand out, though, is the use of antique embellishment. So this is an antique ostrich plume.
Oh.
And what I've discovered, the reason why the ostrich plumes on antique hats look so full and luscious
Mhm.
compared to what we can buy today
Mhm.
is because it's not just one feather. There's typically 3 to 5 feathers put together. They
Oh.
shave the spine so that the feathers lay flat together,
Okay.
and then they kind of just whip stitch it to hold it all together, and that's what gives this lush, thick feather.
Well, it sure is.
And then
Oh.
the lace is antique lace.
Is it? Well, it's just beautiful.
I made the hat pin.
Oh, nice. Oh my gosh, hat pins. Oh, you have to be pretty careful, don't you?
You do. I actually stabbed myself in the eye one time.
Oh, no.
I was in a hurry getting ready for Ghost Walk one year, and I don't know how I was bringing the thing up to my head, and I had it at a funky angle, and I got the corner of my eye.
Oh, goodness.
And thank goodness it didn't hurt.
Sure.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
Oh my God. Dangerous clothing.
Yeah. And I've actually learned in the Edwardian era, when the hat pins were like 12
You can
inches.
set that right here.
They were
sure.
12 inches long.
Oh.
Women were using them in self-defense, and the people got killed by hat pins. So hat pins were outlawed.
Really?
Yes, they were. And I was lucky enough, last year, I believe it was, I went to the Antique Mall in Mound House.
Okay.
I got 2 of the big ones.
Oh, nice.
for my Edwardian hats. Because you need them to keep them on your head. You really do.
Because the hats were so large, or?
Well, it's just to get them perched on your head the right way.
Oh, good
you
point.
know?
Okay.
And then Nevada wins.
Oh, well,
You know, just
definitely.
blow 'em off.
Yeah, right, sure. Isn't that?
But yeah, this particular hat, there was no pattern for it. Typically, I'll use a pattern, or I'll kind of just look at an image and I can see the shape, because I've made so many hats now. I know I know the different pieces of the hat and how to basically recreate what I see.
Oh,
on
interesting.
paper. But this one was a last minute. Okay,
Oh.
I want a new hat for my new dress. I don't like the hat that I have. It doesn't look right with the dress. It needs something else. And all I had laying around, because I'm like, I really don't have time to cut out to make a hat. Typically, you have buckram, which is this really stiff stuff, and millinery wire. And I don't think I had any millinery wire, and I didn't have enough buckram, and I really didn't have the time to make this hat. So I had one of those 10-inch straw hats that you can get at Michael's, I guess, for like $4.
Okay.
And then I had one of those heart-shaped raffia fans. And so I'll show you.
Oh, this is interesting.
So the hats I wear for myself, I don't typically finish on the inside because nobody's going to see it.
Sure.
But hats that I make for other people, I'll finish it and make it look nice on the inside because they're paying for a nice quality hat.
That's true.
But so don't laugh when you say that. You're going to laugh. This is the inside.
Oh, look at that.
Completely unfinished because it sits on the head. Nobody sees it.
Sure, right.
You know, and it's my hat, so I don't care what it looks like on the inside. But as you can see, here's the raffia fan.
Isn't that extraordinary?
So basically, I took the straw hat and I laid it on the fan, and then I used the sewing machine to stitch it on.
Okay.
Then I cut the extra away. And then I laid the hat down on the fabric so I could get this is called a brim.
The brim,
So,
okay.
so I could get the brim piece, and I just cut a seam allowance around it, stitched it together, and I really, honest to God, I think it took me like half an hour. I just kind of threw it together.
That's beautiful.
So you can see it's hand stitched up here.
Oh, yes,
You know, so some of it's machine stitched, some of it's hand stitched. But then, so I had the hat basically put together, and I'm like, okay, what do I have laying around? Oh, I got this feather, I got this lace, and I just kind of just threw it on, and I'm like, that looks good, that'll work.
It's beautiful. I think it's working very well.
And, you know, a lot of my hats kind of happen that way. I go to, I'll either look online at eBay, I'll search hats on there so I can, you know, see antique hats, and a lot of times, because they're selling them on eBay, they take all kinds of pictures, so I can really look at the inside, and they'll even list measurements. So I'm like, oh, okay, so I can basically make a pattern by looking at this image, because they're giving me all these different images, and they're actually giving me the measurements. So then I can make a pattern. But
wonderful sources.
Then I have this great book here, Shoes, Hats, and Fashion Accessories from 1850 to 1940.
Oh,
so
goodness.
Based on the era of my dress, I can refer to here and get a good idea of what was worn, you know, what kind of hats were worn.
Yes.
And what kind of hair adornments for ball gowns, evening wear.
Oh, good
you know,
point,
kind of
sure.
and like, you know, this little lacy, that's a little day cap that they would have worn at the home when they received a guest.
Isn't that interesting?
So
they had outfits for
oh yes,
every
The wealthy did.
Oh, well, okay,
Yes.
sure.
You know, your lower class, they had their basic stuff, but the wealthy, they had, they had their morning wrapper, to come down and have breakfast.
Okay.
And then we'd have a reception gown for, if they typically had a specific day.
Okay.
And a time of that day to receive guests. And then they would have a promenade dress to go walk in the park. They would have a visiting dress. They would have a dinner dress. They would have a ball dress, an opera dress, different. So depending on what their schedule for the day was, they could have up to 5 different wardrobe changes in a day.
Goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, and then with all of the buttons and the lace and the corsets and the...
So they had, ladies' maids were a necessity.
Well, I
the wealthy
guess
women.
so. Gosh, just to keep their masters or mistresses, whatever, dressed nicely throughout the day. Isn't that interesting? Oh my gosh, we're getting a nice history lesson along with how to create beautiful gowns.
So typically, when I make a dress, I want to portray a wealthier woman because I'm not wealthy in real life. So, if I'm going to play pretend, I might as well really do it.
Go to the gusto. There you go. Oh, I love it. Oh, this is just so fascinating. Now, where do you, to get back to the hats here, where do you find your laces and materials to make the hats too, all the decorations?
Typically online.
Okay.
I can find the buckram locally
Okay.
to make the base of the hat. And actually I go to the thrift stores a lot and I'll buy straw hats and cover them or just revamp them and turn them into stuff.
Well, sure.
And fabrics, I find locally. But to get the antique pieces, either stuff's given to me, and actually these things are given to me, the lace and feather, or I'll buy them online, Etsy or eBay.
Do you make your own hat pins or?
Yes, I have. This one here I made when I worked at Beauty and the Beads. Yeah, which is sadly no longer in business.
Okay.
But she had the base pin, and she had the little ends, and these were all beads I found in her shop.
Beautiful.
And I put it together. It's loose.
Well, it's a good thing you have that little end there so you don't poke yourself in the eye. All right, now another thing that I think is just absolutely fascinating that Liza does. Look at her beautiful hair and her hair accessories. You make sure that with every era of outfit that you have, that your hair matches that particular era, year, dress.
Yes.
Whatever I'm trying to say.
So in order to do that, I've looked for tutorials online, and I look at photographs from women of the period. Hopefully I can find an actual specific date. A photograph is listed with a specific date. But then we also have, the resources in these books.
Sure.
You can see the hairstyles.
Yes.
And with the fashion plates here. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Sure.
So I try to make sure that my hair goes with the outfit, because if you're wearing a modern hairstyle with a Victorian dress, it doesn't flow. It doesn't.
Right.
The look is disrupted.
And your makeup too? You go along with? Okay.
Yes. I try very hard. Typically in the Victorian era, the makeup wasn't really used, but they did have cheek and lip tint.
Oh, okay.
And they did use charcoal on their eyes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Charcoal.
But very, very subtly. Very, very subtly. And makeup was typically used by prostitutes and actresses.
Sure. Okay.
But depending on the region that a woman lived, I'm sure that makeup was more prominent in the cities.
Okay, sure.
For wealthy women. But there's no real evidence of that.
Oh, okay, sure.
In like Ladies' Home Journal or Godey's, they talk about covering blemishes. They do talk about covering
Oh,
blemishes.
okay, sure.
And, you know, making sure that your skin looks healthy, and they talk about ways to cleanse the skin and to bring out that natural healthy glow and things like that. But they also talk
Nice.
about, you know, how to mimic the healthy glow by pinching the cheeks, and, you know, and if you have to apply a little bit of tint to look healthy.
Mhm.
So.
Well, sure, why not? All us gals need to look our best.
Yes.
And I see that today you've got a matching rose that matches your outfit. And where
Yes.
did that rose come from?
I actually grow these roses in my garden, and I'm blessed that it, you know, goes so well with my dress.
It's a
so.
perfect color, perfect rose.
Thank you.
Now, can you tell our viewers what you have to go through to get the particular hairstyle, the pinning, the ironing, the all you have to work through?
Sure. Well, today I just used hot rollers, but when I use heat to create the curls, they don't last as long.
Oh.
What I've noticed.
Okay.
Also, it's been a lot of trial and error. For the longest time, I didn't understand why my hair seemed so flat and why the curls wouldn't hold, especially because when I was younger, I could always have curly hair.
Mhm.
However, when I was younger, I slept in foam rollers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Foam rollers. All right.
So that's the wet set. When you
Okay.
wet set your hair, the curl holds much better than a heat setted curl. So that's number one thing I learned.
I'll be darned.
Number
okay.
two thing I learned is
Uh-huh.
that the difference between how Victorian women and even our grandmothers in the 30s, 40s, and 50s,
Mhm.
How they cleansed their hair versus how we do it today.
Okay.
Today we wash our hair every day, and women with long hair are told that they need to condition it to keep from split ends and all this other
Sure,
stuff.
sure.
The conditioner, number one, washing it every day is stripping your hair of the natural enzymes and oils and stuff that,
Uh-huh, right.
it makes to protect your hair from split
Mhm.
ends.
Sure, okay.
And then conditioning it just weighs your hair down, and it makes it really soft.
Yeah.
But it also makes it to where it really doesn't want to hold a curl. You can't form it. You're trying to pile it on your head and just kind of looks like seaweed on a rock. It's just
Okay.
very limp.
Sure.
So I decided to opt how to. I decided to opt how to care for my hair the way the Victorian women did.
Mhm.
I admit I don't wash my hair every day.
Okay, sure.
And I stopped conditioning my hair.
Oh,
What
okay.
I use instead is after I wash it, I'll use a pomade, which is basically oil and wax based stuff. I get it from LBCC, which stands for Little Bits Clothing Company.
Oh.
I think she started off doing 18th century clothing, but she has evolved into an 18th, 19th century apothecary. Is that the word?
Really? Okay.
So
yeah,
it's skin and hair products that she makes from historical recipes.
Oh my
So-
gosh, isn't that
So
fascinating?
I buy my skin and hair stuff from her
Mhm.
because since I'm trying to recreate how Victorian women looked,
Sure, sure.
you have to kind of use what they used and how they did it.
Goodness sakes, yeah.
So the other thing I do is like I said about foam rollers.
Mhm.
I'll sometimes sleep in the foam rollers, but I'll also sleep in pin curls. I found that pin curls kind of do the same thing, and I've sent you a photograph of that.
Yes, you have.
I actually found online an old little photograph. I think it was a drawing actually of how to do the pin curls, and you could see basically it looks like the photograph I sent you, but it's a hand drawing, and I think that was from the 1930s. That particular drawing that I found.
Goodness sakes.
I sleep in that all night, and in the morning I take the pins out and I have curls. And then I'm able to, because I don't have conditioner in it,
Mhm.
so it's not all slippery and lifeless, I'm able to just form it. Oh, and another thing I do too. So in the Victorian era, you notice their hair looks really full on top.
Uh-huh.
They used rats. Not real rats, hair rats.
Oh, okay, all right.
So, what they did, throughout their lifetime, they would have on their little vanity a hair receiver that they would take the hair from their brush
Uh-huh.
and put it in their hair receiver. And when they had enough, they would, rub it together and make these rats so that they could stick it in their hair and get that volume.
No wonder. Oh my gosh.
Right? And another thing I have too, I acquired a natural hair braid. It's about this long. I've dyed it to match my hair color. And so when I do like evening events, when I'm in a ball gown, I'll have this lovely braid in my hair. It's not my hair.
Isn't that awesome?
Somebody else's hair.
Well, it's working.
But you know what? You know, it makes the hairstyle.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to do that. Now, if you're not comfortable using, you know, a antique piece of hair, you can go to, I believe, Sally Beauty Supply and get natural hair that's been cleansed and packaged for sale, and then you can dye it to match your hair color and braid it and everything. And so.
Outside of a history lesson, we're getting all kinds of like, gosh, what would you call them?
Beauty tips?
Beauty tips.
Victorian beauty tips.
Yes. Oh my gosh, this is fun.
This is 16 years of research trying to recreate the Victorian woman.
That's very, very important with anything. Research. I'm a stickler for research, so I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
And believe me, her research has really brought forth many beautiful outfits, hairstyles, makeup, and another accessory too. What you walk in, your shoes.
So for the longest time, it just bothered me so bad that I didn't have shoes that matched my outfits. I'd go to the thrift store and I'd find something that was close. I'm like, well, my dresses are long enough, nobody can really see it. But I knew it wasn't right.
Okay.
And so, you know, the more I got into trying to recreate the Victorian woman, the more I wanted Victorian shoes, and I'd look online, and you know, I was actually looking on eBay for antique shoes.
Oh, okay, sure.
Unfortunately, the shoes that have survived are the smaller shoes. People like to say, oh, you know, women were so much smaller back then. But what it boils down to is it's the smaller clothing that have survived, smaller clothing and shoes that have survived, because they were not worn nearly as much.
Interesting.
So, you know, as the women grew, you know, from girls to women,
sure,
you know, you know, they just weren't wearing it as long. So they weren't wearing out. They were able to be preserved.
Right.
You know, granted, there are pieces that have been stated, you know, Grandma Smith's wedding dress, worn 1872, whatever, and it's really teeny tiny. But more than likely, she was 14 or 16 when she got married. Look at the 14 and 16-year-old girls today. Granted, there's a lot of very large girls, you know, but there are some very petite, tiny little things still at that age. So we really don't know for sure how big or small women were back then. It's just what has survived. Anyways, back to the shoes. So the only shoes that were available, you know, that I could find were little like size 4 and 5, even size 6 shoes. And I wear nearly an 8. So typically if there is a surviving pair of shoes in that size, they get bought up real quick, or the price escalates to just out of my price range.
Oh, good point, yeah.
And then I happened to meet a wonderful woman in Reno, Lauren Reeser of American Duchess.
Ooh, the name sounds intriguing.
Yes. So it started off, I just met her through the Great Basin Costume Society, but right around the time that I met her, I had no idea she was working on building a business of historical reproduction shoes.
Oh.
So now we all have access to shoes that have been reproduced based on original shoes, but fit the modern foot and ankle. Because, you know, today, you know, like there's so many different ankle sizes. Back in the Victorian era, same as with the torso and the corsets, women were, you know, not binding their feet like the Chinese, but the ankles were being bound by the tight boots. So, you know, this, you know, keeping the ankle from expanding the way, you know, because we have such freedom in our footwear today.
True.
Our feet are spreading, you know, our ankles are you know, everything's more natural.
Okay, sure.
Whereas in the Victorian era, things were more constricted.
Goodness sakes, isn't that fascinating? Wow.
So now I can be accessorized from head to toe.
Sure. And stockings.
Stockings, yes. You can actually get stockings on eBay. I've gotten 1930s, 40s seamed stockings
Really?
from eBay.
I'll be darned. Okay.
Typically like new old stock. It'll say NOS in the description.
Oh, okay.
New old stock, meaning that was never worn.
Mm-hmm, right. Mm-hmm.
And then American Duchess also carries a line of reproduction Victorian stockings.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't carry any of the very colorful or striped or anything like that, but she has some very beautiful, elegant
Okay,
style
sure. Mm-hmm.
stockings.
Hosiery, isn't that what they used to
Hosiery,
call
yes.
it? Hosiery?
Yes.
I love that.
Oh, and
I love it.
some of her stockings are actually silk too.
Oh, goodness. You'd hate to see those run then.
Well, no, it's the more like almost cotton fiber style
okay.
knitting of it. So it's a nice thick
Okay.
sock.
Wow.
Not super thick, but it's,
sure.
you know, very nice, nicely done.
So just from head to toe, inside and out, you are a replica of that particular era.
Speaking of inside, the undergarments you spoke of, we really didn't touch on the corset at all.
Oh, well, let's touch on the corset.
The first corset I made for myself, I made straight from a pattern. And I noticed I was having a lot of pinching and it was kind of uncomfortable. Then I found a tutorial online on how to draft a pattern based on your measurements.
Oh, okay.
Since I have done that, the corset I've made, I'm able to reduce my waist 3 inches.
Wow.
And be comfortable.
Really?
Yes. And the lacing of the corset is also important. I thought about the other day about making a short video of how to lace the corset.
Ooh, okay.
Because originally I thought you start tightening from the top and get to the middle, and tighten from the bottom and get to the middle. But actually you pull in the middle. You lace it to where you have your ends in the middle.
Okay, sure.
And you pull in the middle because that's where you're soft. So you're going to constrict the middle so that everything goes up or down.
I see.
So when you pull it taut and you hold it, then you can take in the slack.
Sure. Okay.
From the top.
Right.
And then pull it all in. And I'm able to be comfortable and still able to reduce that much.
Is that right? 3 inches? Wow.
Just from a corset. And I can wear it all day and I'm fine.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely.
Isn't that interesting?
I can reduce to 4, but that's pushing it.
Oh, goodness sakes. Oh, how interesting. Oh, gosh, this is so interesting. Thank you. Your research in here, this is just so interesting. There is one thing that I would like to ask you about clothing. Thin Veil investigators were putting on a cemetery tour pretty soon. And we were going to be wearing mourning clothing because we're going to be talking about the residents in the cemetery. Do you have any suggestions for us or patterns or what you could tell us what we should look like? Because these people were, let me see, they're in the cemetery. They're about 1870s and 80s. Is there anything particular that we should be wearing or not wearing?
Well, as far as mourning clothing, I've only really just begun research on that.
Oh, okay.
So they would wear a dress in the style that was current, or even prior, because just like today, we still have things in our closet that are 10, 20 years old. You know,
I do.
So yeah, depending on the person's status and wealth would determine would determine, number one, what style they were wearing. If they were of the lower class, they may have a mourning dress that's 10 or 20 years old, and they would probably just wear that. You know, so if it's 1870s, they may have a mourning dress from the 60s or 50s.
Okay, all right.
And then as far as color, yes, it's typically black, but they also went through stages, and it depended on your relation to the deceased. So if
Really?
if it was your husband, I believe you were in mourning for 12 months. But you did not
yes.
wear straight black for 12 months.
Mhm.
I don't recall what the stages were, but I'm gonna just kind of guess that I think it was the first 3 months it was straight black, and then the next 3 months you could add a white collar, I think.
Interesting.
And then the next 3 months you could go to just a dark color.
Okay.
I can't remember, but it's something along those lines. And then if you weren't that closely related, I think, you know, the mourning was about a month to 3 months.
Okay.
So
Oh my gosh, the rules and
the rules and
Yeah,
etiquette
oh,
of mourning,
yeah.
yes. And then the terrible thing is, you know, during that time, you could have death after death after death. So you're in mourning for years.
Oh, yeah.
So you could get through the cycle of it.
oh, that's a good point. Sure.
And then you have Queen Victoria, who after her husband died, she remained in mourning until her death.
Oh, is that right?
She did.
Oh, goodness sakes, I did not know that.
She loved him that much.
Sure. Oh, isn't that fascinating? All right. Well, let's see here. Now, you said that you are affiliated or associated with the,
Great Basin Costume Society.
and where is that based at?
It seems to be more based in Reno, and it's only because that's where the majority of the costumers are.
Okay.
Basically what it is, it's just a large group of us who like to play dress up.
Well, I don't see anything wrong with that.
So when there's area events that have a bit of historic twist to it, they will contact us and ask us to be a part of it to add to the ambiance of the event.
Oh.
Like a banquet or things like that.
Sure.
So,
Nice.
and I think they're wanting us to put on a fashion show at the Nevada State Fair.
Is that right? Oh, how fun.
And we were at the governor's banquet a year or two ago, and we had one person from each decade for the time of Nevada statehood to represent each decade that Nevada's been a state.
Wouldn't that be interesting to see? Okay. Now, at the Great Basin
Costume Society.
Costume Society, do each of you create your own, or do you fashion dresses and make them for the people?
Typically, we're each responsible for our own.
Oh, okay.
Or we'll lend and borrow
Mhm.
from each other. But the majority of us, it's our outlet to express our creativity and our art, to be a part of this group. Some of us will actually thrift store create.
Okay.
There's a few of us in the group that can actually go to the thrift store and find pieces and alter them and create a new decade of dress.
Oh, isn't that fun? Yeah.
And that's typically, we're able to do like 1912 to 1940 through
Okay.
thrift store.
Oh, how fun. Wouldn't that be fun to do?
Yeah.
Oh, nice,
So.
nice. And do you have like meetings or?
In the beginning we
Yeah.
did, but now we just stay in contact through Facebook. We have our Great Basin Costume Society page on Facebook, and when events come up, we just alert each other through
sure.
there, and then we respond, yes, I want to be a part of that, or no, I'm busy, and kind of go
Nice.
from there. So instead of trying to do meetings, it's easier that way.
Sure.
So.
Oh, sure. Oh, this has just been fascinating. Now, do you take on commissioned work?
I do from time to time when my schedule permits it. I really enjoy making hats because it's kind of an instant gratification. I can make a hat in a day or two, and it's just so much fun. Sometimes it takes longer because of trying to find the right adornments for the hat.
Oh,
You
sure.
know, if I've got to order it online, or just searching for the right pieces to make it. But once I get all the pieces together, I can crank it out so fast, and I love making hats.
Oh, nice.
And I do make dresses for other people. It's just that because dresses are so time consuming, it really does have to be when it can fit into my schedule.
Sure. Oh, goodness sakes, yeah. And do you offer classes on accessories or dressmaking, or?
Dressmaking, not so much, just because it's so complicated, and
Sure.
I'm really not that comfortable teaching that portion of it. But I have recently been asked to start up some classes on hat making, and and also just the basics of getting to the point of dressmaking. For the Victorian era specifically, the fabrics and the patterns, basically the stuff I've gone over today. I've been asked to basically lecture on that.
Oh, nice.
So no date has been set for that yet, and I did just do a hat making class, and I will be doing another one probably in the fall.
Nice. Oh, this is wonderful. You're getting momentum. You're really starting with a business now too, it sounds like. Okay, well, if you would, could you give our viewers any contact information, websites, Facebook, again, if you would, phone numbers if you feel comfortable?
Sure. The easiest way to get a hold of me is on Facebook through my Eras of Enchantment page. From there, you can find my blog that talks about different projects I've done, and you can basically see step by step how I've created some of the dresses I've made.
Oh, nice.
And you can also, on that Facebook page, you can see photos of different hats and dresses I've made. And I believe my phone number is listed on there.
Okay.
And my email address, but typically just Eras of Enchantment on Facebook would just be the quickest and easiest way to get a hold of me.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you. I know our viewers and me. Thank you so much for being on our show today. What a fabulous, fabulous history lesson, and just getting to know you. We've known each other for quite a few years, but there's a lot of things here now that you spoke about I did not know before. So what a fascinating hobby, business, passion that you have. Keep going, okay, because I want one of these dresses.
Well, thank you so much for having me today, and I've enjoyed sharing what I've learned with you and with your viewers, and I hope people can, learn from it and grow from it, and, those out there who are wanting to get into this hobby
Sure.
have a little more knowledge now, and can really run with it.
And the fun of it too.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you.
This has been wonderful. All right. Well, we hope that you enjoyed the show today. If you would like to be a guest speaker on our Psychic Creation show, please note that the content is of the metaphysical, spiritual, paranormal, and awesome history. You can get a hold of me at my website, which is www.sandypsychicstones.com, or at my email address, personal email address, which is admin@sandypsychicstones.com, or Facebook, which that's it, Sandie La Nae. How about that? Thank you so much for watching Psychic Creations, and we'll see you next show.
Bye.